Busy day at the French Parliament, and potentially the fate of the government may once again hang in the balance. One major bill lawmakers are considering is the so-called Zucman tax. It's being brought by the ecologists and legislation named after the economist Gabriel Zucman. Supporters of the Zucman tax say it would solve the country's debt crisis. Critics say it would contribute to tax flight and curb investment. Our reporter Antonia Kerrigan is standing by at the French Parliament, and we can speak to her now. Hello to Antonia. There is some popular pressure to raise taxes on the ultra-wealthy, but it's much more divisive in the Parliament, isn't it?
That's quite right. As you say, 86% of the French people have shown that they are favourable to higher tax on the wealthiest. That debate was really sparked this summer when an austerity budget was put on the table by former Prime Minister François Bayrou, and voters, private individuals, started really questioning where all those savings were going to come from. So the Socialist Party's response to that was to table this idea of the Zucman tax. That's a 2% blanket tax on individuals, holdings and entities worth over 100 million euros. And the Socialists believe that such a tax could bring in 15 to 25 billion euros a year to public coffers. Now, the government, when Sébastien Lecornu was reappointed Prime Minister, recognised that they were going to have to respond to this debate in some way. And so they tabled a less radical proposal addressing so-called holdings. These are entities in which wealthy individuals sometimes put private wealth and as in doing so protect it against wealth because it's in an entity rather than their private income. But by the government's own admission just an hour ago, this tax that they've tabled with its lengthy list of exemptions would only affect 0.1% of the country's economic actors, and by the estimates of the Economy Ministry would bring in less than €1 billion a year. So it's much less ambitious than what the Socialists are tabling. A Communist MP came forward today in the chamber and said holes are good when it's a sieve, but not when it's tax law. Now, the thing is that the left are lambasting the government for what they see as the inadequacies of their proposal. But the left's proposals don't look like they have a majority either. The Socialist Party recognised that the Zucman tax didn't look like it had a majority, and they've tabled a so-called Zucman light proposal. This is a 3% blanket tax on holdings and entities and individuals worth more than 10 million euros, but with exemptions for family businesses and startups. That will bring in less than the initial Zucman proposal. That would bring in more like 5 to 7 billion euros a year. Certainly, there are dozens of amendments to the government proposal being debated this morning, and we expect those particularly thorny Zucman amendments to be debated this afternoon. It's as yet very unclear what the end result of all this will be.
Yeah, and how dangerous is this situation for Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu and his government?
Well, that's not clear either. Certainly, up to a week ago, the Socialists were making a Zucman tax an absolute hill to die on, an absolute red line. They were saying without it we topple the government. Then they tabled this idea of Zucman light. So you already saw them dialing down the aggression, the hostility towards the government. And now they're saying they're not going to fetishise whether it's their specific Zucman proposal that goes through. What matters is the tax revenue that can be raised. They reckon around 12 billion new tax revenues will be needed in this budget in order to avoid some of the budget cuts that are currently planned, and that includes the doubling of the base medical fees in France and a freeze of benefit and pension payments against inflation. Now, of course, the right wing and the centre are fighting tooth and nail to block the kinds of measures that would likely increase taxation to that extent. So the question is raised of what happens if the Socialist Party don't get some version of a budget they consider acceptable on the whole. What likely would happen is they would move to topple government, but the question then is who will support them. The left probably would, the centre of course wouldn't, it's a centrist government. The right probably wouldn't either, because if the left are displeased, it's that the right's got a budget they're happy with. There's a question mark then over the far right. They've said that they're in favour of higher taxation, but they've also been on the particularly wealthy, but they've also been very opposed to these proposals of a Zucman tax by the left. So it's not clear how they would act, and it's not clear if there would, on this occasion, be a majority to bring down the government.